Of course, this is sent by a brother, and it's looking a lot like the things spoken of in 2nd Ezra chapters 15 and 16 is about to happen. Martial law coming, maybe even as early as April, as he's breaking things down. So I'm just gonna let it play. Make sure this is on. All right.
Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 15. Shalom. I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachakodash, and double honor to our venerable apostles and others of great millstone who were well. Peace and blessings to those elect to the house of David. Christ, brother Haran, coming back at you with another lesson, noble and be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. And I just wanted to go into a quick lesson here. Just another heads up that through the Spirit, I was watching a video that one of the brothers had put up, I believe it was earlier today, and it was going into another one of those foiled so-called T attacks. All right, I forget exactly what state this was in, but just like recent days, you've been hearing all this. Just all of a sudden, you have all the narrative of the sleeper cells, right? Which there's a lot of narratives coming out on that, but we saw how over the past 4.5, 5 years, they allowed people to go through the border and to give an excuse for Trump to come in and say, oh, border's not safe, we need to make it safe, so now we're going to have to come in with all these new rules, right? And also usher in their police state, right? Their visa exit entry system. Okay, that is all part of that totalitarian state that we've been warning about for all these years, that will hit America, Babylon the Great. For so long, people weren't able to see that because they believed in this concept of the Constitution. Okay, it's just a concept, it's just a piece of paper. It's not really a thing that you physically call on is going to do something for you. As a matter of fact, it's just a piece of paper that people always have to band together to defend. Okay, you have to defend those so-called freedoms that you have per your constitutional rights. Okay, you have to defend that at some point in time. And right now is a time for Americans, well, I should say, the time for Americans to fight for that Constitution, all right, is passed. Okay, so now that your government is the one who is preaching, all right, that they're the only ones that can protect you and that they have to create this surveillance state to protect you and keep your cities safe, and you went along with it, well, now it's time to pay and reap what you sow. Okay, and as the scripture says, that a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, all right, that's also going into, of course, you have the violence that's going to be all around, all right, so because of fear, people are not going to want to go outside, because you being outside, you endanger yourself, but also, by going outside, when you're not permitted to go outside, right, you could face problems. You could face, maybe run into a bunch of troops or run into some form of robot dogs or drones or something, that if you're being spotted doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you're going to be brought in and questioned and persecuted pretty much. All right, this is the times that we're entering into where everything you say can be used against you and will be used against you. All right, to the point where some of us are going to be arrested on false charges, but we're still going to be arrested because the scriptures tell you that's a prophecy. All right, some of us are going to be cast into prison and so on and so forth, man. All right, so we're living in the times that leads to that. Okay, now I typed in HexF Quick Response Team by April. Okay, because back in, I believe it was like in the fall of last year, he had requested that every state should have a quick response team ready, all right, by April of this year. And, we were, kind of like speculating what could possibly be the reason for that. And now, once the smoke clears, we'll see exactly what the reason was. But while the smoke is still being visible, right, we can see what they're about to bring out, which is push a narrative that America is not safe, that you have lone wolf T attacks, various states getting attacked all at the same time, all at once, right, which calls for a quick response team that never goes away. Okay, it never goes away. And also, too, they might be preparing for the backlash of this whole Iranian-Israel war. Okay, so people, for the most part, the American people are not with this shit. And a lot of people have woken up to the point where even if they were to pull a so-called false flag, it's still not going to convince the people that, oh yeah, Iran did this and we have to go to war, because a lot of information is out that Iran is not the problem. Israel is the problem. And a lot of people, especially in America right now, the whole concept of the anti-Sem is out the roof right now. Completely. Because everybody's against these Israelis and their tactics, dragging America into a war that most Americans don't want to be a part of. He broke a whole Marine's arm because he spoke out against, going to war against Iran on behalf of Israel. You see? And apparently there's a lot of the troops that are, they echo the same sentiments. that this is not, you know, a righteous war. We're not fighting for our constitution. We're going to war on behalf of Israel. We're protecting it. Like, they're openly saying this shit. You see? So you're gonna have mutiny in the military. That's why they had that whole meeting in Quantico last fall. Okay, to get them prepared to pledge allegiance to fight for Israel. We said that was gonna happen. Okay, so let's read this. It says Pete Hegseth has overseen plans for the establishment of National Guard Quick Reaction Forces, trained in crowd control and civil unrest response, with a goal for these units to be deployed in all 50 states by April 2026. So the Quick Reaction Forces are supposed to be trained for what? For crowd control and civil unrest. So do they know something that we don't know? Are they gonna artificially manufacture something that causes people to bug out, to react in a way where they're gonna have to have National Guard Quick Reaction Forces in the streets? Right? And you know, our Passover is on April 1st. So it's very interesting that this is all set up for April. Who knows what the month of April is gonna bring? But they started this shit, this war, you know, geopolitically and foreign. I believe the month of April starts when the war comes domestic, where the government is going to start pushing against its people. Why? Because people are not with what the government is doing right now. They might have to shift their attention a little bit. Okay, up the ante, so to speak. It says, an internal Pentagon memo dated October 8th, 2025, directed the National Guard of each state and territory to form rapid response units of approximately 500 troops per state, totaling around 23,500 personnel. Units and training, it says, troops are to be trained in riot baton and shield use, tasers, pepper spray, and de-escalation techniques. Each state is to receive 100 set of crowd control equipment and 2 full-time trainers from the National Guard Bureau. Ooh. The program aims to have forces operational by January 1st, 2026, with full deployment readiness expected by April 2026. Expected to be fully deployed for readiness. Okay, readiness expected by April 2026. That's next month. They weren't expected by the end of January. We passed January already. They weren't expected by February. They weren't expected by March, but they were expected in April. Okay, let's read. Legal and political context. It says this initiative fulfills an executive order issued by President Donald Trump in August 2025, mandating a standing National Guard Quick Reaction Force for rapid nationwide deployment. While the White House claims the force is intended to restore public safety, critics like Janessa Goldbeck of the Vet Voice Foundation warned it could be used to suppress elections or override state authority, especially in states with Democratic governors. Hegseth's response says, when questioned in October 2025, Hegseth did not deny the memo's existence, stating he would not comment on particulars on what may be in the planning process, but affirmed the existence of multiple layers of National Guard response forces that can be constitutionally deployed when necessary. Okay, and this is all pretty much the building up of the police state. We've been warning about a police state that's being built over the years. This is how it happens, man. We set up a quick reaction force team that gets deployed upon a moment's notice, and then they never leave. Because the reason why they're being brought out there is just so indefinite and uncertain that it can happen at any time. We need to have security at all times. Okay, sleeper cells. That's a great example to use. Okay, that's a nice way to set this shit up. Sleeper cells. They're all throughout the whole entire country. They could go off at any moment, at any time. We need to make sure that we have our battalion ready. Okay, to be deployed in all 50 states. All 50 states. And you know what I think of? I think of Jade Helm. Okay, I think of Jade Helm. This is where it starts. Okay, I think of very soon, April. We got April. So what's gonna happen from, let's say something was to go down in April, right? You got May, you got June, you got July. May 1st is May Day. May Day, Illuminati birthday. All right, 1776 to 2026, May Day, May 1st, right? And then July 4th is America's so-called birthday. Okay, so that's 3 months from April. You got April, May, June, July, 3 months. Okay, so who's to say? All right, and you got, let's not forget June, right? June 6, 2026, you got the 666 in there. Okay, America's 250th birthday, all these different things, right? It makes sense for them to start some shit, all right, and then bring it in, usher in the new currency, the new system. Okay, have people bug out all summer long, and then right around the fall, you start to introduce this new currency, this new way of doing things. Okay, they already took out the old Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. They replaced him. All right, the new guy that came in, he's all
there is something in mind for January 2027, by the way, for that system.
So who's to say? Who knows how this thing is going to play out? But this is very, very suspicious. All right, to set up a quick response team all right, to be deployed in all 50 states by April, and their main purpose is to be trained for crowd control and civil unrest. What do they got? What do they got that we don't? You know what I'm saying? What's going on? Is it finally the time? Right? Is it finally the time? So going back to 2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 14 says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein." Why? It's the same sentiments that was echoed by John the Revelator in Revelation 12. Okay, that the devil has come down upon you having great wrath because you know that he hath for a short time. You see what's going on in Iran. You see what happened in Gaza. Same thing is going to be happening here in America. And people going to be like, I can't believe the president is doing this to his own country. Yes, because they're against his policies. They'll just label them anti-Sem. They'll label them domestic teas. They'll label them opposing Democrats, right? Radicalized, whatever. But they will demonize American citizens to be able to be justified in killing them openly. Okay? Just like how they demonize Iran, same thing they're going to do to Americans. You stand on Iran's side, because all this stuff that's going on is setting up the stage for TTID. Tag, trace, and identify. Everything that people see online, everything you're watching, they're recording all of that. And they're setting you up on the red list, the blue list, and the yellow list. Once martial law is enacted, because it sounds like they're trying to pull some shit starting in April, okay? Who knows if they're going to do it then, or make it, linger just a little bit to build up the hype or whatever, but to be able to deploy military units, all right, in all 50 states, starting in April, hey, okay? Who knows? But the stage is definitely set for something to go down. All right, verse 15, 2 Ezra 15 and 15 says, "For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh." All right, and we see the sword, all right, being embellished, all right, with this whole Iran situation. Okay, it says, "And one people shall stand up and fight against another." Right, that's a civil war. Isaiah 19 tells you that. It says, "And swords in their hands." Those are weapons. Okay, predominantly here in America, you're gonna have people with guns. All right, guns. So it says, verse 16 says, "For there shall be sedition among men." Ooh. And what's going on right now geopolitically is setting up the stage for sedition. You got a lot of people who are not with what Trump is doing. Even people in MAGA, like for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene should be considered somebody who's to be arrested on charges of sedition, right? Because she said, "This is not the party that I voted for. We need to band together and stop this." Where's the outrage? Like somebody like what's his name?
Tucker Carlson.
Gerald Celente, right? I listen to him a lot. Him and Judge Napolitano, right? They talk about these things, and they have the old school way of thinking. That's not going to work in the New World Order. Okay, so everyone who has the old school way of thinking, that's not going to work. They're going to have to find a way to eliminate that. That starts from the Bible, because that's where the morals start. That's where the good starts. That's where we question their motives, their so-called morals or lack thereof, their reasons for doing things. It's all going to be judged based on what the scriptures say, and they can't have that. Okay, they can't have that. Remember, the New World Order, it says expect no mercy. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't even look for it. They're coming for your women, your children, the old, the young. It doesn't matter, because that's what the Lord said He's going to do per Ezekiel the 9th chapter, the 4th verse on down. Okay, spare none. And the perfect vessel to be the one the Lord is going to use to fulfill that is Esau Edom. All right? They've done it before, they're doing it now, and they're going to even step it up even more to do more later on. Okay? It says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another," right? "They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So the law is not going to dictate the actions of people anymore. In other words, Ezra just talked about a lawless society. Okay? What is called, what's that phrase? Anarchy. All right, that's the word, anarchy. That's a state without law. Okay, anything goes. The concept of being in the purge, right? But this time you have the government also being a part of it. Okay, it says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." All right, we have all that chaos going on, right? You got people right now in the Middle East. They're sheltering. They're not going out to go sit at a club or go to an open dining hall or a rooftop building just to go chill. No. You might be. You know what I'm saying, you're never coming back type shit. All right. They're going to blast you right off the face of the earth, man. You know what I'm saying? You wait till that shit start hitting here in America. Different cities, different states. Man, it's about to be crazy. Okay, a time like never before indeed, man. All right, Americans are about to be shook. Shook. Those who don't have any clue what's going on. I was talking to my brother earlier. I said expect, the dams to be affected. Of course, expect modes of transportation. So you cause enough panic, right? Expect some type of bridges to be going down. Or some type of compromise to the bridges. That's enough to scare people, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine some type of crazy shit happens in a tunnel, right? And you're on a bridge inside the tunnel, and they're telling you there's an explosive somewhere. We need to find it. Everybody stop. Boy, look at here. But this is good because it's part of the hysteria that they have to create in order to be justified in bringing in their new surveillance state. Because if we had that surveillance state, then these things wouldn't have happened, right? So it's a very easy way for them to do it. And again, it's all problem, reaction, solution. When you know the playbook, none of these things happen by surprise. It's all happening step by step by step by step. Okay. It says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Okay, quite literally. Okay, you got people in the pride community, all right, and also you got people who are proud in spirit. Okay, they follow after the ways of BJT. People really think America is invincible. I don't know why you would think that. I just don't. But people really think that. When the Americans themselves are not invincible, how the hell is a country going to be invincible? This is the weakest America's ever been. Void of judgment, void of they're reprobates. Okay, they're void of any morals. This is it's called the valley of the shadow of death for a reason. All right, that city, that dark, dirty, bloody city, man. Okay, and that's what's described, all right, in the book of Nahum. All right, that woe unto you, all right, you bloody city, man. All right, the Lord is going to require and avenge all the blood that you've shed, especially that of the Israelites. You got the all the blood that's on your hands with these other nations, but the ones that you touched, that is the Lord's eye, the apple of the Most High's eye. That's where He's going to come after you, man. Okay, that's when He's going to come after you. Have you ever seen a hen or her chickens? Listen, man. It says, verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. People are about to lose their 401k, their savings, their pension plans, all of that. Even the money in their banks, your savings, all that shit is going to be wiped away clean. That's going to piss people off. Okay, that's what's going to cause people to turn on each other. Because a simple narrative, if you're a Republican, oh, it's the Democrats that did it. If you're a Democrat, it's the Republicans. See what they've done? Boom, go at each other. It's the Democratic cities that's facing this the most. Oh, it's the Republicans' policies that's causing all this to happen. Boom. It says for lack of bread. So, can we see grocery stores being emptied out? Well, Scripture says it. Suddenly shall the storehouses be found empty. Okay? Scripture talk about famines.
And yesterday, because we was going into this that a lot of the food supplies and all that is going to be going to the troops. Well, I was in Costco yesterday, and I noticed that you know how there's shelves up above what's for sale. These shelves were not as full as they would be normally. I was starting to see a lot of empty shelves there. You know, in the coffee section and in other sections of the store as well. You know, shipping is probably going to the troops because he's already deployed 100,000 on standby. 100,000 troops are on standby. Now, there's rumors that this war could end in a week, that the U.S. has given a light to Israel, the states end their war in a week and come to the table and, give some of Iran's demands to end the war. But that's neither here nor there. We know it picks up again. And like everything else, so you have a lot of National Guard on standby as well for the civil unrest, as this brother's going into.
In diverse places. So yeah, because of what? For lack of bread is a sign of famine. You don't got the bread, right? The physical bread that you're going to have to go eat food, and you don't have the money to go buy the food even if it was available. That's a problem. That is a sign of economic turmoil. That's what that's talking about. Lack of bread is another way of saying economic turmoil, man. Okay? Food scarcity. That happens when you have an economic turmoil. Look what happened to Egypt. All right, ancient Egypt during the time of Joseph. It got so bad that people had to sell themselves to Egypt, to Joseph. Okay? So we could get some food, we're going to sell ourselves. That's exactly the plan Esau has to pull off this MOTB prophecy. Okay? Take away everything from the people, and then in order for them to get anything back, they have to pledge this allegiance. Okay? Give us your right hand or your forehead, and then we could talk business. All right? So this is the plan of these devils. This is what they're planning to bring out. And this year, 2026, is gonna go out with a bang. All right? It's going to go out with a bang. Like I said, early in the year, the MOTB will be mainstream by the end of this year. You're going to start seeing it. You're going to start hearing companies start moving towards it. You're going to start seeing big corporations working together and bringing it out just like that. You're going to see countries around the world start to bring it into life. Okay? And then last but not least, you're going to see America start implementing a lot of these things until it becomes mandatory. It's going to lead all the way to, if we're still here in 2027, you're going to see this thing play out. Okay? Because all the technological infrastructure is there. All that's left is for them to bring it out, and that's it. But for them to bring it out, they need that one event, or multiple of those one events. And we're going to be there. We're going to be there, man. So just look out. You know, they say in April, right? Get ready for the quick response teams. All right, starting in April. So who knows? Who knows, man? All right, but again, they've had this stuff documented for years, ready to go. All right, but at the appropriate time, it's going to play out. All right, let's get this last piece up here, and then we're going to close it out. All right, it's beautiful times that we're in. Like finally, you're seeing these visions playing out. It's a beautiful thing. As the book of Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak." And we've been talking about these things for years. Hey, very soon they're gonna do this. Very soon they're gonna do this. Very soon. People who know us, they've heard it for so long. They just like, yo, bro, you've been saying this every year, every year, every year. But guess what? You know what never? You know what? One thing that never stopped is our faith that it's going to happen. If it didn't happen 10 years ago, it didn't happen 9 years ago, it didn't happen 8 years ago. It doesn't mean it's not gonna happen. It just means we just gotta wait for it to happen. But we know it's going to happen. We just don't know when.
Yeah, we're waiting patiently
And we
for it.
speak in our vehemency because we want it to happen so bad, right? We hasten unto the coming of the day of our Lord, man. All right, who doesn't want to do that? If you're in the right spirit, you tired of this place. No matter what you got going on, you tired of this fucking shit, man. It just never ends. It's always one thing after the other. When you think you just got a break, some bullshit just hit you. It just never ends. And we've realized, right, that the only way we get some type of happiness and be able to just breathe a sigh of relief is when this place goes. This place is taken out, man. At that point, we take a deep breath, man. All right, and then now we could just let things unfold after that. But this devil gotta go. This kingdom gotta go, and it's about to go. Okay, that's all part of the vision that's yet for an appointed time. It says what? But at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, right? Though it tarry, wait for it, right? Though it may seem slow in coming, be patient, right? Because it will surely come, it will not tarry. When the time comes, the Lord says, I will open the door for you. Stop coming here to check on the door. I will open it when it's time. And when it's open, you will know. It's loud enough where you could hear again open. It's big enough for you to see. You're going to walk through that door. And you're going to be like, oh shit, I finally made it. Wow, I never thought this door open. It's like, wow, this is crazy. It's like, damn, this was behind this door. No wonder it wasn't open when I was trying to open it. Right? It comes with a whole bunch of shit. Because it's the end. Okay? It's the end. As it's written, a time like never before. Alright? So prepare, and keep praying, man. Pray. Pray to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for mercy, for guidance, for protection in the days that we're coming into, man. Alright? Because as it's written, surely the days are evil. Anyway, I'm ended off there low when you edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruchakadash, the water Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, Shalom.
And so that's it. It's coming. You know? We've been warning about it for years, and now you're starting to see a lot of things fall into place. All the pieces are falling into place. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruchakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth in sincerity. And shout out to the Akims out there in the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Hashem Rakakadash, Brakatum. Oil rises to $100 a barrel as Hormuz crisis reverberates across the world. Energy analysts believe oil prices could surge to record new highs in the coming weeks if Iran continues to block the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices surged to more than $100 a barrel on Thursday as attacks in the Gulf and hawkish rhetoric from the U.S. president overshadowed news that countries would tap their emergency reserves to minimize the shortfall. The U.S.-Israeli war against Iran has thrown global energy markets into turmoil after Tehran's retaliatory strikes effectively blocking oil and gas shipments transiting the vital Strait of Hormuz. Some 20 million barrels per day of oil have disappeared from the market in what the International Energy Agency described as the largest supply disruption in the history of the global market. So, like everything else though, you know, and you know this, Iran's new leader pledged to keep the strait closed in his first address since being appointed last week. So, you know, and there's more. Trump says we're going to make a lot of money when oil prices go up, as his Iran war makes Americans pay more at the pump. Yeah, make lots of money. Help him stay rich. Help the rich get richer. I'm pretty sure that that's what they want. President Trump on Thursday tried to portray the increase in oil prices since the start of the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran in a positive light, saying this makes the U.S. makes more money when prices rise through. Americans are already paying significantly more for gas. The U.S. is the largest oil producer in the world by far, so when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money, the president wrote. But of greater interest and importance to me, the president is stopping the evil empire Iran, oh boy, from having nuclear weapons and destroying West Asia completely. indeed the world. I won't ever let that happen, because, they are out to rule the world. And that's just it. The U.S. has ruled the world, the hammer of the whole earth, for so long that they own everything. It belongs to them. It's theirs. How dare you kick out our investors? It's mine, all mine. You've seen what happened to Venezuela over that. U.S. tariff investigations put China, EU, and other major trading partners in new crosshairs. Because, of course, like everything else, though, this douchebag has been raising tariffs ever since he came back into office. The Trump administration opened a new round of tariff investigations that could lead to higher duties at least 16 trading partners as officials seek to rebuild trade enforcement framework after the Supreme Court invalidated a number of the president's second-term tariffs. So, like everything else, though, you probe into it, you reject him there, and then he comes up with new ones. There's no stopping this guy. He's going to crash the economy. Consumer sentiment going down. EU auto heads begin blaming Iran conflict for industry woes. Well, like everything else, though, and being relying upon U.S. fuel when that shit's getting blown up, because the seizure of oil in Venezuela is going to the Israeli state. It ain't going to the EU. It's only going to, the terrorists that are attacking Iran, the U.S. and the Israeli state, and everybody else, they have to suffer. The transmission of the energy shock to consumers appear to have materialized just 12 days into the Operation Epic Fury, according to executives at Volkswagen and Volvo Car, who report that consumer sentiment has already softened. We are already starting to see consumer sentiment decline in many markets. Volkswagen head of state told industry event in London earlier on Thursday. Consumers were already facing a great deal of uncertainty, and this is now, of course, adding another layer of anxiety. Volvo's UK managing director, Shaw, told the audience that economic uncertainty may soon weigh on consumer sentiment enough for households to begin pulling back on big-ticket purchases. Yeah, this ain't time to get a new car. Unless you're forced to. You see, like everything else, though, they make it so hard for you to fucking keep your old cars running. Because, man, they see that, okay, it's going to take you a little bit longer, like maybe a month or two more, to save up enough money to fix your old car. Next thing you know, you got threats by your fucking management agency or the city of Reading or somebody else telling you got to get rid of your fucking car because, you ain't got enough to fix it. So it's forcing you to make another deal. Well, that forced me into getting a Jeep last year because of piece of shit fucking real property management. Forcing me to have to put off trying to fix my car because I just didn't have enough time or money. Wouldn't let me save up enough to get enough, Either way, long story. That's what they do. Try to force people to get in a car. And, like everything else, so, that's what they, while you want to pull back, they're forcing you into deals. Things that you can afford, but you're trying to make it affordable if you're smart. And like everything else, though, this false flag that kind of went south, and we all knew that, they're deliberately telegraphing it. U.S. officials say no Iranian threat to the homeland. White House makes it clear. The White House has officially confirmed that no Iranian threat to the U.S. mainland currently exists. The sentiment aims to ease growing tensions. The U.S. continues to monitor the situation closely for any potential shifts. Okay, that's on one side, but then on the other side, they're still trying to push the narrative that they're going to do a bomb run, that there's going to be drone strikes on the West Coast. Trump administration under attack from all sides for flip-flopping on Iran war. Administration slammed on the left and right for downplaying Iran's alleged threat to the U.S. So it's all falling apart, the narrative. Trump administration under fire on the left and right for flip-flopping on the cost of high energy prices to American consumers and Iran's threat to national security as it attempts to downplay the costs of the war in Iran. White House Secretary Leavitt denied that Iran posed a threat to the U.S. homeland when she criticized ABC News article that said the FBI warned that Iran will strike the coast of California with drones, which we know that it'd be the Israelis doing it to blame Iran, which I did a video on that, breaking that down yesterday. And I'm sure lots of other brothers did too. No such threat from Iran to our homeland exists, and it never did, Leavitt wrote on X, which is right there. So, like everything else though, it's a flop. The worst false flag psyop in history, as this video goes into. So they can't get their story straight on this false flag attack.
Over the last couple of days, it's become even clearer that a false flag is coming to the U.S. and they're going to try to blame Iran. And you all should be absolutely insulted by the lack of effort they're putting into trying to convince you that this attack is actually going to be legitimate. The FBI allegedly warned the police departments in California that Iran, in retaliation for the war that the United States started, plans on attacking the West Coast. It says that the FBI recently acquired information as early as February 2026, which would be weird because the attack started on the 28th, but whatever. Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California. Can y'all spot the holes in that logic? The FBI allegedly received this information as early as February. The initial attack from the United States against Iran was February 28th. In the evening. And if the attack would be retaliatory, as the FBI is claiming it would be, then there's nothing surprising about it. It's not a surprise attack. It's a retaliatory attack in response to the war you started. But let's talk about the allegation that the drones will be launched from a vessel in the region. Because that would mean that while the United States knew that they were preparing to go to war with Iran, they still allowed an Iranian vessel to cross the Pacific Ocean past Samoa, where the United States is stationed, and past Hawaii, where they have multiple vessels specifically used to guard that region and stop people from that part of the world from attacking the western part of the United States. Like, this is the same Pearl Harbor that holds the Pacific Fleet. Carrier strike ships, fleets of submarines, some of the most advanced intelligence on the region in the world. And your claim is that an Iranian vessel just scooted on by there, potentially, which is possible. But, only if you allowed it to happen. Oh, gee, what a coincidence. And now the Army is offering $5,000 for information after 4 drones were stolen from Fort Campbell. And what did the FBI claim? That the West Coast would be attacked by drones. And any and everybody in the military knows, if bullets go missing, if a magazine goes missing, there's hell to pay. And you're trying to tell me that 4 drones just up and walked away with no one seeing it? And then Trump admits in a speech that the U.S. has been following these alleged sleeper cells from Iran and that they're tracking them, but they haven't actually arrested them. But don't worry, he still manages to blame their entrance to the United States on Biden's open borders somehow.
Have you been briefed about how many Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now?
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think.
Is it dozens?
They came in through the open border policies of Sleepy Joe Biden.
So to make this clear, the FBI is tracking sleeper cells from Iran, allegedly, but hasn't arrested them. A vessel from Iran managed to cross the Pacific past multiple U.S. military bases, undetected, but actually detected because the FBI has warned California in advance, and no one has done anything about it. And now 4 expensive-ass drones go missing from a military base, and no one knows where they're at. And on top of all that, we're supposed to believe that Iran will conduct its first and only terrorist attack on Western soil in history using sleeper cells, which they've also never done. Yep, I crunched the numbers, and it turns out the math is not mathing, arithmetically speaking. But considering how unpopular a ground invasion is, how else are you going to get American support going to a war with Israel if you don't do an attack on American soil?
Things that make you go, and people are questioning the narrative, etc., right? So, seems like a good time for martial law, right? But wait, there's more. As Stu Peter Network goes into it, right? False flags to begin on U.S. soil. So, getting right into it.
What else have we got here? The false flags have begun. This was as of this morning. Disclosed.tv reporting early this afternoon that police were responding to an active shooter at none other than Temple Israel Synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. shortly after an active shooter was shot and killed at
no,
Old
he
Dominion
shot-
University in Norfolk, Virginia. That's probably going to be the Virginia connection. I'm sure that Frankie Stocks will bring us a Virginia story. And then also this, and excuse the explicit language here, but I'm going to quote this verbatim. And you guys can put this up on the screen, but this came from Abier. Quote, holy fucking hell, I checked, it's legit. Epstein file number EFTA, Echo Foxtrot Tango Alpha 0014786661. Quote, he witnessed babies being dismembered, their intestines removed, and individuals eating feces from these intestines. Trump, along with his wife Melania, were present. So we're at war. Everybody's talking about the Epstein files, but here we go. Trump and Melania, who, by the way, were introduced to each other by Paulo Zampoli, another very close associate to the world's most prolific child sex trafficker, the convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, who Howard Lutnick brought his kids to his pedophile island knowing that he was a convicted pedophile. All of these people, they all run in the same circle. They are all of the tribe. Every one of them is of the tribe or serves the tribe. And all of these people are participating in the ritualistic sacrifice of our children, the murder of their childhood innocence. So pay attention to the Epstein files. That's the linchpin that makes all of this fall. That's the reason why we are at war. That's the reason why Charlie Kirk was going to, quote, go ballistic on Trump over Epstein ties and over the Forever War lobby, the Iran war. He was shouted down. All of this is connected. So, again, PSA here, if you work in or around in the LA area, if you work in or around the US Bank Tower, what do you think, Frankie? Lucky Larry Silverstein. And then we've heard all about the drone war that's supposed to take place, and it's going to take place where? In LA, and blamed on the Iranians. Of course, Iran is going to attack LA.
Yep, and I find it really remarkable, just the Los Angeles connection here, because going into the Oscars on Sunday of this weekend, they're saying, hey, be on the lookout for a sleeper cell activation. They've got a perimeter set up around the Oscars. They say there's going to be snipers on the rooftops, as if all of these people are oh so important, and we just can't risk losing them. They are ramping up all of the sleeper cell false flag rhetoric going into this weekend. And then, on top of that, you've got Lucky Larry, and that's exactly this guy. He's the pull-it guy. I mean, this is the infamous guy from 9/11 who just openly says on camera, yeah, you know what, we knocked down the building, and he's got the building now in Los Angeles. I mean, it's a perfect storm of things happening out there, perfect location for a false flag, and these people want something to happen. These people are putting all of the pieces in place for something to happen.
To get more support for the war and to bring in martial law.
Now, actually, quick response forces are mobilizing all over the United States, across all 50 states. The Trump administration has ordered National Guards to create units that can respond to crises within minutes. They have to have 25% of their force ready in 8 hours. They've got to have 100% ready in 24 hours. But some of these forces are going to have guys who are on permanent standby who within 20 to 45 minutes can respond to whatever situation they're called into from the National Guard Armory. They are specifically tasked with targeting American civilians. These are for civil unrest or civil emergencies, but they also have thrown into this responding to terror attacks or responding to attacks on sensitive infrastructure, and they've activated them now in D.C. So look for them to be activated all over the country as these units are put into place, and as they're
as you know, the Passover,
they've now been
couple
activated.
weeks.
So at the very same time that they're telling us, hey, be on the lookout for sleeper cells, they've already activated one of these quick response units in the so-called nation's capital. We all know at this point the real nation's capital is in Israel, where this occupied government's reporting back to, and that's what all of this feeds back into. And look, speaking of Israel, in Israel, the members of the IDF who were caught on tape raping a Palestinian detainee, they've had those rape charges dropped. They're just free to go. It's no big deal, because that's what these people do. They rape Palestinians on camera. Citizens come out in an outrage when they're arrested and charged with that rape, and they riot for the right to rape, because these people believe that the right to rape was promised to them 3,000 years ago. These people believe they were chosen to commit rapes, and then the rapists go on TV all across Israel and do national media interviews bragging about how them raping Palestinian prisoners advances the Israeli war effort and advances the greater Israel agenda. So that is who this government is reporting back to. That should be no surprise to anybody what we see coming out of the Epstein files, because this is who Jeffrey Epstein was reporting back to. This is who Jeffrey Epstein was in league with, and the tactics that these National Guard contingents are going to be using all across the country against American citizens are the very same tactics that are deployed against the Palestinians by these IDF psychotic rapists. Now look, one more story here, and you mentioned the Virginia angle and the false flags popping up all over the country, and this is where this comes in. Earlier today, supposedly a crazed lunatic tried to ram his car into a synagogue, and then he jumped out with a gun.
I heard about that one.
Taken out. We're never going to hear from him again. That was the attack, as they call it, the attack in Michigan. And then in Virginia, just as Abigail Spanberger tries to ram through this gun control, they've already rammed it through the legislature. Now she's going to sign it, and now they've got another event to hang their hats on and say, this is why we've got to take your guns. This is why we've got to go door to door confiscating firearms, because there's been yet another mass shooting. Isn't it convenient? A mass shooting as the CIA governor prepares to sign gun confiscation and gun control bills. 2 people were injured. The shooter was taken out. Another person who we'll never hear from. And they'll have Abigail Spanberger, APAC Abby, on every corporate news network all all across this country, holding up this mass shooting as the greatest event since sliced bread, and the reason why they have to come in and take away guns from Americans. They always have their justification. They'll have their justification for deploying the National Guard units and deploying the regular army onto American streets against American citizens. Once these false flags start popping up in full force, they'll say, we can't trust you to own guns. We can't trust you to peacefully assemble. You could be a member of a sleeper cell. Now we're sending in the quick response force trained by the IDF. So that's really where we're at. Back to you, Stu.
They will send them in to take on the terrorists, and you are deemed a terrorist, classified as a terrorist. The government gives itself the permission slip that it needs to kill you or to completely strip you of your constitutional rights, detain you, treat you as an enemy combatant. If, according to Project Esther, you're defined as a Hamas support individual
Project
or a Hamas
Esther
support network
coming.
or organization, they're going to use this as the Noahide enforcement arm.
So there it is, Project Esther in the making. You see everything right there. You see, like everything else, though. We put up videos just warning you, and yet you're hearing it directly from Esau himself, right? Iran defends right to self-defense in the Strait of Hormuz, slams U.S. aggression. Iran emphasized his commitment to the principle of freedom of navigation, but stated the ongoing tensions in the region, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz, and direct result of the destabilizing actions of the U.S. Iran fully respects and remains committed to the principle of freedom of navigation under the law of the sea. Its ambassador told the United Nations in a statement at the UN Security Council stakeout. However, the current situation in the region, including the Strait of Hormuz, is not the result of Iran's lawful exercise or its right of self-defense. Rather, it is the direct consequence of the destabilizing actions of the United States in launching aggression against Iran and undermining regional security. So, like everything else, though, you know, it's one of the first things that the new Ayatollah had stated, that it will remain closed as long as this war continues. In his first statement, Iran's new leader says the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed and attacks on U.S. bases to continue. Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, who replaced his slain father as the new supreme leader of Iran, issued his first statement on Thursday, where he said the Strait of Hormuz to remain closed and vowed Iranian attacks against U.S. bases in the region to continue. Certainty the leverage of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must continue to be used, Khamenei said in his message, which issued a written statement and read on Iranian TV, suggesting that Iran could open other fronts in the war, and vowed there would be revenge for Iranians who had been killed, including more than the 100 girls and boys who were killed by the U.S. terror attack against an elementary school in the opening hours of the war. Retaliation we have in mind is not only related to the martyrdom of the great leader of the revolution, but to every member of the nation who is killed by the enemy becomes a separate case in the file of retaliation, Khamenei says. So, pretty much so. He's not just avenging his father, he's avenging the people of Iran. Sounds like a really good leader who's been courageous in this whole thing. Some say that he actually sustained injuries from some of these attacks as well. You know, so unlike King Bibi, who just keeps on taking off to Germany or wherever else he goes, leaving the people to die, and then comes back on TV when it's convenient to say that they're winning the war, even though the Israeli state has been destroyed, decimated. You know, the cities have, the people are fucking panicking at the airports, you know, especially in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and yet, you know, he's just, you know, sitting cozy somewhere while everybody else is feeling the aftermath of attacking Iran. They are begging Iran to stop with the retaliatory strikes, but their government won't stop, and they know that. They know that it's King Bibi that caused this. Now, this is just a quick one, but nonetheless, though, this is coming from their news agency, and this is one of their generals. You know, like everything else, though, Tel Aviv is looking so much like Gaza. There's only, you know, there's not much of it left. So King Bibi took off, while they were getting pounded in retaliatory strikes.
جوری ماست. دیدم این دیشب در تل چی شده. یعنی ما چون رادارها رو زدیم زیر ساخت‌ها رو زدیم امروز واقعا آقای ترامپ و نتانیاهو در یک قتلگاهی در خلیج فارس گرفتار شده و روزها و هفته‌های آینده خبرهای بسیار خوشحالتری خدمت ملت عزیز ایران داده.
So, like everything else, being led to the slaughterhouse, while their king, just takes off and has loads of fun, just, resting somewhere else so that way he can give his speeches and talk about how great the war is going. DC gives the Israeli state 1 week to end the war against Iran. So, they're admitting that this is Israeli state's war. This is not an American war. This is a Israeli war. And so this is, I don't know how true this is. I think they're going to flip-flop back and forth. But this is what's happening. Newspaper quoted a source saying that a change of regime in Tehran is unlikely in the near future because it would require ground invasion, ground military intervention, or return of large-scale internal protests, which currently do not appear likely. The source also pointed to a major difference in how DC and Tel Aviv assess the war. The U.S. administration is mainly concerned about the impact of the conflict and oil prices and the global economy, while Israeli state claims that its military operations have achieved significant gains. I mean, boy, talk about, a nose growing bigger, right? Earlier yesterday, the newspaper Politico reported the administration of U.S. President Trump has not carried out a thorough assessment of the consequences of the conflict with Iran while it launched the confrontation, which had a direct impact on oil prices. So, according to Politico, Trump tried to calm market fears by ordering the release of 172 million barrels for the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve after comments by Energy Secretary Wright failed to reassure investors. Report quoted economic experts as saying the Trump administration underestimated the efforts of the confrontation, causing petrol prices to rise by 60 cents per gallon in less than 2 weeks, despite record production levels in the U.S., because those reserves are for their military. It was never for the people at the pump. They don't care about you. That's just it. They only care about getting rich. Because that's what Trump says. He's going to make lots of money. Even Lindsey Graham said, we're going to make so much money. Iran sets firm demands to end the war amid regional push to restart talks with DC. Iran's President Pezeshkian said Tehran is demanding reparations and firm international guarantees that it will not be attacked again. This is what they're asking for, which is fairly reasonable. Like, look, man, we want reparations for everything you've destroyed, and we want to guarantee that it will never be attacked again, which that they break that agreement, it should one actually happen. They break that agreement and World War III starts, because there is going to be a ground war. Whether it happens in the next few weeks or or the war resumes again and then everything happens, but it's going to happen. The scriptures make it quite clear what happens, that everybody, including Magog, the land of Magog, they send troops in, Gomer and all its troops are in, to stop this ground invasion. 4 countries are holding behind the scenes with senior Iranian officials in an attempt to initiate dialogue with U.S. President Trump toward a deal or even ceasefire, but Iran's not looking for a ceasefire. They want a permanent end to the war. Iran has so far refused to enter talks into agreement because they don't want a ceasefire. They want an end to the war. There's a difference. Maintain a hardline position and present initial demands as part of any potential deal between Tehran and DC. This comes hours after Iranian president issued a series of demands for an end to the war, including reparations for Iran. Talking to leaders of Russia and Pakistan reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. This is the only way to end the war ignited by the Zionist regime and the U.S. In recognizing Iran's legitimate nuclear and defense rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression, the Iranian president stated on X. And he wrote it in English, by the way. You know, pretty much straight out the gate, he wrote it in English. So, like everything else, though, you know, we'll just see. But, you know, a lot of people are against this war and against sending their kids to die. You can't blame them for that. Resistance group strikes down U.S. Air Force KC-135 aircraft in western Iraq, which is a refueling plane. This actually was down. It's actually confirmed on the U.S. side. Iraqi resistance groups struck down a U.S. Air Force KC-135 straddle tanker, a symbol of American overreach and aggression. The aircraft plummeted from the skies in a blaze of righteous retribution, claiming the lives of its crew who dared to infringe upon sovereign lands. The U.S. acknowledged that one of its aircraft had crashed in Iraq, not saying that it was a missile that hit them. CENTCOM confirmed the crash in a statement, claiming that it was not the result of hostile or friendly fire. U.S. Central Command, aware of the loss of the U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft, the statement read, "The incident occurred in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury and rescue efforts are ongoing." So they're downplaying it. They're not going to tell you that Iran actually is winning, or that, you know, that yes, indeed, they did shoot it down. They don't want to give people the the disillusion that, you know, it's not working. Iran's not any weaker. They didn't take out the Air Force. Took out some pictures. They really destroyed those paintings. And from what I can see, it looks like their Navy, oh, it's quite operational. They didn't destroy everything they claimed to have. UK says U.S. terrorist injured by drone attack on base in Iraq. So, the U.S. terrorists have been injured by drone attack against base in Iraq. As Pentagon stays quiet on the U.S. casualties. Well, of course, you know, they don't want you to know that more than 7 troops were killed. Erbil and Baghdad were both struck a number of times last night with increasing coordination. We have personnel in Erbil who are currently helping with the defense of that base, said Brigadier Guy Forden, officer of UK's Parliamentary Joint Headquarters, from where British overseas operations are overseen. Yeah, because, you know, a lot of these are UK and US bases that are in Iraq, you know, used for their aggression against Iran. And they've been told time and time again to get out of Iraq, and they won't, because we already knew what it was for. Earlier this week, Pentagon acknowledged that at least 140 troops have been injured since the U.S. and Israeli state launched the war. It's a lot more than that, just on the injury side. And the deaths are way higher than what they're saying. As many as 150 service members had been wounded before the Pentagon just acknowledges 8 severe injuries and confirmed 8 deaths, including, oh, okay, it's only 8 people that died. It's a lot more than that, but they're not going to tell you. On Wednesday, CBS News reported that on the 1st of March, Iran drone attack on U.S. Operations Center in Kuwait killed at least 6 troops, was much worse than the Pentagon disclosed, of course. As of Tuesday night, more than 30 troops wounded in the attack were still in the hospital. They are definitely downplaying the sizes, but you already know that. Israeli state signals possible Lebanon ground invasion as hundreds killed in strikes. So like everything else, though, they're going to continue invading Lebanon and taking over territories. And remember, they have a deal with the new Syrian government to take northern Lebanon, and Israeli state will occupy southern Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes across Lebanon intensified on Friday as Israeli terrorists signaled potential expansion of the war, which already killed at least 687 people and displaced 800,000, including the possibility of a ground offensive inside Lebanese territory. Okay, so it looks like he's still alive. He didn't get killed. Israeli Defense Minister Katz warned that Israeli state could seize territory inside Lebanon if Hezbollah attacks continue. Katz, let's see, where is it? Yeah. I thought I'd seen his name come up. Israeli strike early Friday hit a car in Jinnah coastal neighborhood in southwestern Beirut, killing one person according to Lebanese Ministry of Health. Quds added that he and Prime Minister Bibi instructed the IDF to prepare for an expansion of activity in Lebanon. Yeah, so they're going to continue to invade Lebanon and punish Lebanon because of their failing war against Iran. Trump threatens deranged scumbags after U.S. suffers aircraft loss. The White House ordered the easing of sanctions on Russian oil as markets continue to be disrupted. Donald Trump vented anger over media coverage of the war on Iran, claiming observers could incorrectly think that we are not winning. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today, Trump wrote on Friday, adding that killing Iranian forces was an honor for him. Yeah, well, yep, to save face, you've got to, support the war, right? First address, Iran's new leader stresses defense and need to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, which we already kind of know about that. The will of the people to continue effective defense and their presence on the scene must be maintained. The Strait of Hormuz must remain closed, Ayatollah Khamenei said on Thursday. He began his address with a prayer for the return of the awaited Imam, following an expression of deep sympathy for the martyrdom of the great leader of the Islamic Revolution, his father, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. He extended his condolences to the Iranian people and the global Muslim community, particularly to those affected by the recent U.S.-Israeli attacks against Iran, including families and martyrs of the survivors of the Islamic movement. And like everything else, though, much better leader than anything that the U.S. or Israeli state have, that's for sure. They show themselves to just play golf and have fun, and remember, while playing golf, because that's what Donald Trump does, that's just the way that it is. If your son or daughter dies, talk about blatant disregard, right? Iran's IRGC Navy launched 2 crushing waves of attacks at dawn today, targeting the headquarters of the U.S. terrorist Fifth Fleet in the port of Mina Salman, with a barrage of missiles and drones. The operation resulted in accurate strikes on critical infrastructure, including LIDS, anti-drone systems, field tanks, and support equipment centers. Additionally, storage depots for shampods and centers where American terrorist soldiers assembled. So, like everything else, though, they're hitting back really fucking hard. And this shouldn't come as a surprise, but here it is. Just in, Epstein files confirm ISIS and Al-Qaeda are backed by Israeli state and U.S. to create regional instability in the Middle East to capture trillions worth of oil and natural resources. Well, yeah, Trump said it. Before that we have the oil and we're keeping the oil. So let's just see if I can blow this up. So here it is, Of course, names are blotted out, but like everything else, Turkey gives Nusra a heads up on Iraqi recruits slaughter. Russia gives Erdogan a heads up on coup. U.S. gives a pass on ISIS to Palmyra. Assad has no support, so will stay. Nuclear base in Turkey, Soviet defense in Iran, Saudi, in Yemen, Egypt, about to lose all financial support. Jordan, Amman, refugees, as does Lebanon. Also, my guy Jaglan, Sea General of Europe, will be there this weekend as well, so he's just bragging about it. Yes, there is a tradecraft name for administration's approach, clusterfuck. When China began building bases in South China Seas, we ran freedom navigation cruises. He's just quite a bit bragging, right? Let's see here. But nonetheless, though, this is just some of it. And you get the gist of it, that ISIS was created for regional instability. Well, we already knew that. And And like everything else, though, Syriana analysis, well, he was on Last American Vagabond yesterday. I'll play some of it. Obviously, for time's sake, I won't be able to play all of it, but you can catch it on Last American Vagabond channel, which is on Odysee or on BitChute. I'm not sure if he's on Rumble. I think he is, but either way, he's definitely on those. He's not on YouTube anymore. And I don't think he's returned to YouTube, just like I didn't return to YouTube for quite a while because of the censorship, just dealing with the, what they would like to call misinformation, right? I couldn't say certain words. So, like everything else, though, here's some of it. So here's some of the interview.
Mark, how are you today? Pleasure to have you on the show, brother.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me on your show to discuss this very, as we say, it's complex, but it's not complex at the same time. So let's go through them.
We were just saying this off the air just a second ago. It kind of baffles me. My audience is well aware of this. I frustratingly talk about this all the time. Is the origins behind Al Qaeda and ISIS and funding and involvement. There's nuance very clearly, but it's just so clear that there's involvement that goes back to its origin point from the U.S. and even Israel. Ben Swan had a documentary a long time ago that I thought did a really good job on that. James Corbett has this 3-part documentary on that just nails it to the wall with undeniable evidence. But it's just how this tends to go. It's so much pushback from the corporate media, mainstream alternative, sort of kind of controlling the status quo. But it's important, that we just keep bringing this to the table, and hopefully new people see it. And on this, I've been talking about this a lot over the last year. And I think we may even briefly touched on this last time we spoke. But I'm of the mind that I've never seen this many people start to ask these questions and start to open their eyes to things like that very point. Do you see that kind of growing awareness, and do you think that's becoming the majority, or where do you put that in your mind?
Actually, I was part of the people who believed that the people who believed Al-Qaeda is somehow under the control of the United States empire, or managed by them or moved by them in certain places. They are crazy nut jobs. I thought they are conspiracy theorists. And the only time the suspicions started for me, I was just like a normie person, like any other person. This was in 2012 when I started seeing the influx of weapons to Syria into the hands of what used to be called Jabhat al-Nusra, the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. Now, back in the day, I still thought that the Americans would not really cross this line of basically arming a group like Al-Qaeda in Syria. And I thought that the allies of the United States are doing it against the will of the Americans, because at the end of the day, Al-Qaeda is the boogeyman. Al-Qaeda is the enemy of the United States, right? They flew these jets to the Twin Towers. They blew up several buildings. They hit the Pentagon. They did all these things. But this was the naive me for a very long time ago, and I wasn't really involved in really digging into these, let's say, security incidences that happened in the past. And I'm not an expert on 9/11, but I have checked the recent history, for example, when it was in Afghanistan. Now, the convenient thing to do for an American empire fighting during the Cold War against the Soviet Union is to support the antidotes of the Soviet Union back in the day, the antidotes for the socialists and the communists, and those who were basically the Islamists. And the Islamists have seen the communism and socialism back in the day as an absolute evil. And they fought against them, and they thought that communism, at certain point, they will also take over the Arabic and Islamic countries, because in these countries, they were subjugated and subjected to a long history of colonialism. So the people were excited about resisting against any sort of colonialism or neo-colonialism, especially after independence, because the independence of these countries was at certain phases just ink on a paper. They didn't really gain their independence. They gained their independence through recognition in the UN.
So here we go.
It was a covert operation, and signed by Barack Obama to destabilize Syria
There it is.
and use these Takfiri jihadists basically to oust Assad. This was the first time I heard about Operation Timber Sycamore, and then when you dig in, you notice that actually this is the second most costliest operation in the history of the CIA. They are basically spending, or they have spent $1 billion per year over this Al-Qaeda Takfiri jihadists in Syria. And this was in 2017 when Donald Trump ended Operation Timber Sycamore because Trump thought that it's too costly for the U.S. strategy, and he said we could choke Syria through economic sanctions, through economic warfare. Why are we spending all this money? So he didn't really end the war; he just replaced it from military warfare into an economic warfare, and this was more brutal.
And that's really what caused the Syrian Arab Army to fall.
95%
was
of the Syrian people
economic
sent them
woes.
below the poverty line. Now, during this time, when I was doing research, I found one document for the Defense Intelligence Agency of the U.S. dated in 2012, and this is a report that the American Defense Intelligence Agency basically submitting to President Obama and telling him in this report that the driving force behind the insurgency in Syria are the Al-Qaeda in Iraq, the Salafi jihadists, and the Muslim Brothers. And then we have the WikiLeaks document, WikiLeaks, which published the emails of Hillary Clinton, and then you have the advisor of Hillary Clinton back in the day. He used to work for her, Jake Sullivan, who later became the national security advisor for Joe Biden, basically saying, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Okay. Then in 2021, we have the former U.S. envoy to Syria, James Jeffrey, telling to the press, to PBS, it's not like something leaked. He says, Jolani's army, which is AKA Al-Qaeda franchise in Syria, is, quote, it's a strategic asset. It's an asset for the U.S. strategy in Syria. This is what he told the press. And then you have the former ambassador to Syria, Robert Ford, basically, after the overthrow of Assad, and Assad was ousted in December 2024, in mid-2025, Robert Ford gave a lecture to some think tanks, and you know how arrogant these people are, and the ego in them sometimes speaks because they think they are smart. They're not smart. They're vile, they're arrogant, they're criminal, but they're not as smart as they think they are. And I will tell you why I think they're not smart. Basically, he said, guys, I trained this guy. Like, I trained this guy who is now the president of Syria. And basically, I took him out of the terrorism world. So we have lots of evidence in Syria that Al-Qaeda has been a contract army for the United States.
And like everything else, though, here it is, right there. You see? And that's why he's making bids for the Israelis, to win the war. So it's a no-brainer there, like everything else. So many headlines to pick from, I mean, which ones do you pick? Because there's so much coverage going on. You just got to discern, okay, well, is this fact or is this just a rumor? Because, we're just hearing wars and rumors of wars leading up to the big thing, And we're hearing about the thought of martial law all at the same time. So, I just want to, get into that a bit here, Because, hey, we're in the times now that, if you're not on board, you should have been on board a long time ago, But you're in this time that Yahweh Shai said just before his return. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 4. Yahweh Shai answered, be careful that no one misleads you, deceiving you and lead you into error. Again, this year has been called the year of apostasy and of sellouts. Many will come in my name, misusing it and appropriating the strength of thy name, which belongs to me, saying that I am the anointed, the Messiah, and will mislead many. You've seen that all the time. But we're calling out every flaws and everything else that these other leaders of these other camps say. So yeah, hey, at least we give you a heads up and a warning. Hey, wait a minute, this is not what he's saying does not match up to Scripture. You should be discerning and doing that. But many are going to be misled. You will continually hear of wars and rumors of wars. Well, you're in a war now. And rumors, about this war. Things that are not accurate. And things that may be accurate. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but the end is not yet. So it's not quite time yet. There's still one more prophecy that has to happen. For nation will rise against nation. Martial law, unrest. Kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows, or merely the beginning of birth pains. Of the intolerable anguish and the time of unprecedented trouble. So we already know that we're already here. So hopefully this has been edifying. Got one more here before I close this out. For that I want to say Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Shem Rakakadash, Wa Abal Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah Elect, Shalom. And close this out with this brother from GMS Chicago.
Shalom. This is Kwaya, aka Pops out of GMS Chicago, with another sit down. I'm not quite sure how brief it's going to be because I'm watching this. Like I said, Carl, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shah Bashem, at 4:41 in the morning, and get ready to do this work. So anyway, what happened is this. This is TOI Live, and I was looking at the times of India, okay? And I'm looking at this, and even though, some of these small countries are like straddling fences and this, that, and the other, they kind of let both people say what they have to say. And up until this point, 5 minutes and 17 seconds into this video, was all Western propaganda. United Nations, I just run it back so you can see it. Got the United Kingdom President, United States, blah, 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 okay? So you got all these people talking all this stuff. You got two people talking this junk. And now here's where the Russian Federation gets a chance to say what it is getting ready to say. And with that being the case, let me show you what it is that he's saying, okay? Because everybody want to cry foul because of all of the different types of nuclear ammunition. I mean, not nuclear, all of military ammunition that Iran is using. But Iran basically wore their ass out with all their cheap old shit and wore them out and made them spend a lot of their fucking Iron Dome shit that now that they don't have it a lot. I think Apostle Paul basically did a video where he was talking about how America's basically asking for help in this fight now because they use up so much stuff so quickly on this cheap shit that now they're in a position where their protection, the protection that they so-called brokered with the Israelis is now breaking down. Okay, not a who on spot has been hit. So like I said, let me go on and finish this introduction and go here. This is the party, aka Papa in Chicago. Sending all praises, honor, and glory out to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash, to the apostles and elders of GMS out of New York and Elder BitChute out of Connecticut. Send double lines because they do well. But brother around the world, push the streets uncut, unfiltered. Give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the scriptures correctly break down the prophecies and interaction with the people on the planet. Send the party shalom for the hope elect. I hope this is edifying. I try to keep it short. But like I said, I haven't gotten past this 5-minute mark. And I sped it up because I wanted to hear what this Russian guy is getting ready to say. So let's let this play, do this, and I'm going to work from that and pull up the scriptures.
In fact, the subsequent events, and most especially those who have been compelled to observe during the course of the past week and a half, have clearly demonstrated that diplomatic. Initially, this was not part of the plans for the United States and its allies. They intentionally raised the stakes, fueling hysteria regarding alleged Iranian nuclear weapon plans, which were never supported by IAEA reports, contrary to what we heard today from the U.S. representative. This was done to implement the agenda and beyond. In this specific context, we wish to emphatically remind all present that the Russian Federation, with the utmost clarity and conviction, unequivocally condemns the recent act of armed aggression perpetrated against the sovereign nation of Iran by the forces of the United States and Israel. This action stands in direct and undeniable violation of the established principles of the United Nations Charter and the fundamental norms of international law. Such actions are justifiable, especially by groundless claims regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program. Should be respected. The United States and Israel should immediately stop military action and not attack facilities in Iran that are subject to safeguards the International Atomic Energy Agency. It is imperative to prevent any further escalation of the current volatile tensions and to ensure that the conflict does not spread across the broader Middle East region. All parties should remain calm and exercise restraint, fulfill their obligations under international law, and effectively ensure the safety of civilians and civilian facilities. The international community should send a clear and unequivocal message opposing the world's regression to the law of the jungle.
Real quick and give you a quick little narrative behind it, okay? Because, you know, they talking about how the Israelis was bombing Palestine and all this other kind of stuff with no regards and this, that, and other. But now that Iran is starting to cut loose and hitting the Israelis the way the Israelis was hitting Gaza and all this other kind of stuff with no remorse, and then came at them on that same principle and thought that they was going to stay inside the rules. This, that, and the other. Iran is no. And in the first day of this, they killed their sovereign leader that was there, not understanding that his son is more over the top than his daddy ever was. Okay, so he said, okay, first of all, you can kill my dad, and you think I'm getting ready to put gloves on and box you fairly? He just says you show you don't box fairly, you don't fight fair. You think I'm getting ready to fight fair? So he done cut loose. He saturated them with that stuff, ran their things through, ran through all their so-called missile defense systems and whatnot, and now it's gloves off. And you can see this is Russia and China, which is, we've been reporting, I've been, here at GMS, we've been reporting all the way back to 2011, 12, when they formed the BRICS nation, that Russia and China absolutely said they got Iran's back. Back then, we was talking about this back in, like I said, 12, 13, how Iran is got two big brothers, and two big brothers that are real bullies on the block. Okay, per se, real bullies on the block. You know, you got, and it's funny, you got the smaller one, which isn't actually the smaller one, but considered the smaller one, as in China, and he's like the martial artist of it, because he's got satellites up there that could knock with EMPs designed in them that can knock out all kinds of satellite transmissions and this, that, and other, make them obsolete, while his technology will still work. So he can literally blind your ass. So that's why we were telling you. He said you won't always get a chance to see what's coming in and out. That whole re-entry program that you think with the ICBMs can become null and void with China's satellites that's up there. Okay, and they got so much space junk over the top that, like I said, to go up there and call themselves trying to shoot at it, they got so much space junk up there. It can be kind of hard. If you think I'm lying, Google it. Google space junk in the stratospheres of this world, and see how much junk they actually got up there. So let me let this finish point.
Secondly, the Iran nuclear issue must ultimately return to the track of political and diplomatic resolution. I want to emphasize that the Chinese side strongly condemns any actions that violate international law and the fundamental purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter. The Chinese side strongly condemns this. We strongly urge the United States to immediately change its current course, return to genuine diplomatic negotiations, and unequivocally commit to never again resorting to military force. Engage in genuine and frank discussion with Iran in order to achieve a comprehensive solution that fully aligns with the expectations of the international community. It is important that European nations cease adding fuel to the fire and instead contribute constructively to de-escalating the situation. The proper resolution of the Iranian nuclear issue is vital for the authority and effectiveness of the international non-proliferation system and is crucial for peace and stability in the Middle East. As a permanent member of the Security Council and a participant in the JCPOA, China will continue to uphold an objective and impartial stance, strengthen communication and coordination with all parties, forge a collective force, and champion fairness. The dangerous developments represent an unprecedented escalation that threaten the regional security and international stability. In this context, the targeting of civilians, their terrorization, and the transformation of their residential areas into military objectives constitute a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and represent a serious escalation that jeopardizes civilian lives, the national economy, and the security of society.
You see what I'm saying is, but where was all this outrage and everything at when the Israelis were doing? Okay, they spoke some. No matter who is considered a war criminal, and this that, and other. But nobody, but he's been flying around and getting around and coming to the U.S. and this that, and other. And ain't nobody scooped him up and took him to the Hague and let him be tried as a war criminal. Okay, nobody scooped him up and did that. Why is that? Okay, so that's about it. I'm gonna use this information for. Let me get to some scriptures now. Okay, hold on. Let me stop here. Let me go through some of these titles. Look at this. Iran. Let me see what we got. Iran launches missiles at NATO nuclear base in Turkey. Dubai financial center bomb, and Dubai, like I said, is one of them ally countries and this, that, and other. Will burn gas and oil sites. The IRGC it basically letting you know that, first of all, our missiles can be aimed at even more crippling targets and things of this nature. Okay. Resistant missile destroy U.S. aircraft. Iran military bombshell at Poppy KC-135. Okay.
This is the penetration power of these flashlights, and this is the penetration power of illegal flashlights.
And this is one of the airplanes that I got it. I should say I wouldn't say I got it. This is the type of airplane that I got it when I was even in the Air Force. This is KC-135. I had KC-135 and B-52 stateside at Castle Air Force Base, and we had a lot of bases over there. Like I said, some weren't even up and going yet. Qatar, this, that, and other, but like Saudi, things of this nature was definitely up and going, and so forth, so on, and this, that, and other. So now they've been expanded and put their foothold, deeper in the region with F-35s and KC-135s and things of this nature, B-1 bombers and stuff like that. They can touch down over there and do what it needs to do. But so now Iran just started going after these types of installations and things like that, and that's why you're getting all the feedback and all the crying out, because of the fact that what they thought it was going to be their way of being able to miss a lot of stuff or not have to deal with a lot of stuff has now become not the case. They're coming after the real things, and this man has got sedition, in the world now. Pursuant to Ezekiel the 38th chapter, Isaiah the 14th chapter, Revelations, the book of Revelations, what's that, 17th or the 18th chapter or so, and this and another. So, things are starting to heat up and actually square off into these scenarios, for real. So, let me get some scriptures here. Let me go get this. You see, where do I want to start at? Let's see where I want to start at. Let's see. Actually, let me go to second Ezra. Second Ezra 6. Second Ezra. Second Ezra 6 and 24. Second Ezra 6 and 24. Okay, 2 Ezra 6 and 24. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. Okay, so these people are starting to square off. They over here. You got Middle East countries, which is Western Asia countries and whatnot, start to condemn, what they see in America do in the process of, calling it not right or whatever the case might be. Donald Trump is starting to put himself into the same category because he followed the orders of the Israelis, not who, and basically, but that's just the figureheads. You know, this is all being pushed and perpetrated by the bankers behind. You know, they say all wars are banker wars. So you got, you know, the Rothschilds out behind the Bilderbergs, DuPonts, and the Gettys in the background saying what the agenda is that they want to have happen, and the funding of the wars are being done through them and by them anyway. Okay, so let me go and get let me see what this is going to be, because I mean, Second Ezra 15th chapter is real simple. Let me go get Second Ezra 15th chapter. Let's keep it simple as possible. I like to say keep it simple. Second Ezra is the 15th chapter. Okay. 16th verse, 15th verse. I'm sorry, 14th verse. Woe unto the word of them that dwell therein, for the sword of their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against the other with swords in their hands. And the modern day swords goes all the way up to nuclear weapons. So these people are starting to square up. And you got Satan squaring up against Satan, because you got Russia declaring that they're backing the Persians, which is basically the Iranians, in this scenario against. You got Edomite Russians, as you know, declaring that they're backing basically Persians, which is Iran, against other Edomites, Trump and his military over here, and the United Nations and those countries that are hooked in the middle of it. Okay, so woe to them that dwell within, them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, swords in their hand. But there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. See what I'm saying? You know, you got Russia, and you got Russia even rolling down on his own people at the same time, because Russia is rolling down on Ukraine. Okay, so Ukraine was part of Russia, so those people are absolutely of the same bloodlines and this, that, and other. They were part of Russia at one point in time. Okay, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their king or princess. So whoever the guy is that's in charge, I can't think of his name right now, right off the top of my head, because he took a back seat now. He took a back seat to what Iran has got going on and whatnot. But you know, the guy in charge of Ukraine going against Russia is basically he's the king, because Putin would be basically the king of Russia, and I can't think of his name again, but the guy that's in charge of Ukraine right now would be the prince, and they're squaring off against another. They shall not regard their king or princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Everybody trying to stand in their military power. But that's crazy, because Ukraine don't have no military power, because all the nukes and things that it had belonged to Russia, so they had to get those up and whatnot. That's why America's over there trying to help them and fund them too. So America is basically going 2.0. They stretch themselves so thin militarily wise, which is why they can't concentrate in one place and deal with a war head on correctly. Okay. Let me go get this scripture here. Let me see what I'm going to get. Okay, verse 14. And it shall be as the chase roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone to his own land. So, you know, these people that's here, that are like the so-called Persians and whatnot, they get ready to get up out of here now. They get ready to get up out of here. You know, the money is starting to dry up, and this, that, and the other, in the process of. So, you know, everybody that got rich off America is getting ready to get up out of here, because this stuff is getting ready to hit the fan on a whole different level. You got, you know, Benji was just there to sit down on some things and whatnot that was going on, and how these people, everything leading to the MOTB, and these people and whatnot, the ones that want to be part of the system is going to be part of the system, but the ones that don't are going to be getting up out of here, okay, and going back to their homelands all at the same time. Don't nobody want to be here in America. I mean, if you had a place to go, I'd be trying to get the hell up out of here or whatnot. Okay. Verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the needs against them. Okay, verse 17, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb, and their eyes shall not spare children. These people been bought, the Israelis been bombing some of everybody for a long time now. And now that people started, now the outcry started to come because those people that were being bombed and whatnot, or I should say, people that was watching them bomb all these, the Palestinians and this, that, and other. Y'all want to come against him, and he said, "Oh, okay, well, no holds barred, right? You brought the fight. You brought the fight to me. I didn't bring the fight to you. I wasn't bombing the Israelis. Y'all brought this fight to me. Since y'all brought this fight to me and killed my dad in the process, I'm gonna show you what I'm about. Okay, no honor among thieves, not a problem. I can definitely live by it. And he's living by it. And show him. This is how you want it. This is how you can get it. Let's see what I got here. I'm gonna end it here. Okay, this is all still part of the Lord's judgment. Because here it says, Micah 5:15, and I will execute vengeance and anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they that have not heard. This is going to escalate into nuclear war. But Yahushua always said, Yahushua says that what will it be? It was already kindled. So this is to kill them. This is the fire that's going to be already on the earth when he shows up. So these people got this coming and don't realize that this is actually leaning toward. So those so-called bankers that think that they getting their will done, they're actually doing the heart of the king is in the Lord's hand, and he'll turn it and will turn it any which way he will. These people think that they get a chance to do what they want to do, but that's not. They actually falling right into what these scriptures say is going to be happening in the last days. So I hope that that's edifying for you all understand and see that, like I said, all this destructive stuff is all part of the Lord's will. He's a man of war. So there's going to be war and rumors of war going on. Okay, so you got wars now. There ain't rumors no more. I wish I said there'd be wars and rumors of wars. Well, the wars are not rumors now. The wars are actually the people fighting. Okay, and it ain't clanging the swords and whatnot like the scripture says. It's a fuel of fire. These are missiles that are pulling this off now. But this is where we at. So I hope that that's edifying. I send all praises on and glory to Yahweh Shai. Like I said, but hopefully it's an exhilarating time to be alive. You see that the prophecies that's in these scriptures are actually jumping out of the pages and into fucking national, international news now. So, how they gonna say, y'all been talking about this forever and it ain't never happened. It's happened. So with that, a hearty shalom for the hopeful elect and a Bible bar for the rest of the world.